Madam Chair, honorable members of Parliament, Griffier, my support staff, persons in the Tribune, citizens tuned in via social media, radio, or under the sound of my voice, good morning and blessed day to all. I am here to present the draft national ordinance to amend the 2024 budget. Madam Chair, allow me before doing so to also extend my condolences to the York family. In this presentation on the Budget Amendment 2024, I will provide an overview of the significant amendments made to the 2024 budget, offering insight into the process that led to these changes. I will then address the CFT advice received and discuss the amendments that were incorporated into the budget as a result. Next, I will present the key figures, including the projected result, income, and expenditures for 2024. Additionally, I will highlight the main adjustments in capital investments and loans, while I, as the Minister of Finance, will present the major amendments. Each individual minister will return this afternoon before Parliament to address specific questions related to their respective ministries. The initial 2024 budget was approved by Parliament at the end of March 2024. Following this approval, it was submitted to the Financial Supervision Council, CFT, in accordance with Article 12 of the Kingdom Financial Supervision Act, RFT. The CFT issued a negative advisory opinion regarding the Budget 2024, which was approved in March 2024. In response, the Budget 2024 has been adjusted to reflect most of the recommendations provided by the CFT. This amendment incorporates more recent and updated information to provide a more accurate and realistic representation of the financial outlook for the remainder of the year. I will now go into detail regarding the various adjustments suggested by the CFT and explain how these recommendations have been incorporated into this budget amendment. This will provide clarity on how we addressed the CFT's concerns and aligned the budget to meet their expectations while ensuring it remains realistic and effective for the current year. In their advice, the CFT recommended that revenue and expenditure estimates be based on the most recent actual figures and that interest expenses be adjusted in line with agreements concerning the refinancing of the liquidity support loans. They also advised reviewing the feasibility of plans to implement a tourist tax, 9 million guilders, and the sale of Winair shares, 13 million guilders, and to adjust the budget accordingly. Additionally, the CFT emphasized the need for structural control over budgeted expenditures with proper justification for each item. Furthermore, the CFT advised amending the budget to ensure that from 2024 onwards, it reflects surpluses on the ordinary service of at least 0.5% of the GDP, which translates to a surplus of 16 million guilders for 2024. They also emphasized the need for sufficient justification of the proposed investments for 2024, considering both the limited execution capacity and the delayed approval of the budget. Additionally, the CFT recommended including an explanation for multi-year capital expenditures and initiating the development of a multi-year investment agenda. Finally, they advised the preparation of a multi-year liquidity plan to assess the repayment obligations and potential need for loan refinancing. The key points highlighted in red have not been incorporated into this budget amendment, and I will now provide further elaboration on the reasons behind this. Regarding the 0.5% GDP surplus, As Minister of Finance, my colleagues and I are actively exploring ways to increase revenue and manage expenses as efficiently as possible to be able to achieve higher surpluses in the coming years. However, as noted, in our responses to the CFT, their suggestion is a policy guideline rather than a requirement under Article 15 of the RFT, leaving this matter at the discretion of the government. Based on current information, we do not foresee a surplus of 16 million guilders and have therefore chosen not to adopt this recommendation at this time. In terms of the multi-year capital expenditure and investment agenda, I have marked this in red because we have not fully complied with CFT's advice. While we have outlined an agenda for the next 2 years covering 2026 and 2027 with a projection of 1% of GDP, in our multi-year forecast, the specific breakdown for these last 2 years have not been included in this budget. It is important to note that this 2024 budget amendment does not include any new policies. Given the limited time remaining in the year and the snap elections in August 2024, it was agreed with the CFT to focus solely on making the budget as realistic as possible for the remainder of 2024. Adding new policies was deemed impractical as they are unlikely to come to fruition within this year. I will now proceed to discuss the amendments as presented in the draft budget, starting with the multi-annual projections. As previously mentioned, we do not foresee a surplus of the 16 million guilders. However, we do expect a slight improvement in our financial result. As shown in our multi-annual projection for 2025, there is a decline in the budget amendment in comparison to the approved 2024 budget. This decline is a result of not accounting for additional revenue related to the instruction of the tourist tax, or the tourist entry tax in 2025. In our current projections, we anticipate this tax will likely be implemented in 2026. This also explains the significant increase in our expected results for 2026 and onwards. Based on more recent information from Q2 report, we can see that our revenue is slightly lagging behind expectations. This has been adjusted in our multi-annual revenue projections. As a result, we have revised our estimates, particularly for wage tax and turnover tax for this year and the coming years. Additionally, we have made adjustments to the income for the projected sale of Winier shares, which has now been removed from the 2024 projections. Likewise, the introduction of the tourist entry tax has been postponed, and we now anticipate its implementation in 2026. In order to maintain a balanced budget, we have had to reduce our expenses by 26 million guilders for 2024. These reductions are also reflected in the multi-year budgets. I will now provide more detailed insight into the specific categories where we have decreased revenue projections and then outline the areas where expenses have been adjusted accordingly. In this budget amendment, we have reduced our revenue estimate for this year of 25 million guilders. Initially, total revenues were projected at 575 million guilders. This has now been adjusted to 550 million. I will now outline the major adjustments in each revenue category. In the taxes category, we see the largest decrease of 28 million. This includes the removal of the 9 million guilders tourist tax, which was intended to be introduced in the second half of 2024. However, since there has been no board at the SER, there was no movement in this legislation. Since August 2024, the SER board has been reestablished, and we are very pleased as they are key in the legislative process. We look forward to receiving their advice on the tourist tax by the end of this year. In addition to the 9 million guilders removal of the tourist tax, there was a 7 million decrease in wage tax, a 3 million reduction in income tax, and a 9 million decrease in turnover tax. The decreases in tax revenue has been adjusted based on the actual figures up to Q2 and updated projections for the remainder of the year. These adjustments ensure that the budget reflects more accurate and realistic expectations for revenue moving forward. We believe The quick wins achieved in tax administration last year had an impact on revenue collection, but we suspect these increases were incidental one-time increases, which led to a decrease this year. Our tax revenues are managed on a cash accounting basis, meaning if certain companies made payments last year for taxes related to previous years, those payments would be recorded in 2023. This can affect future projections as these revenues are one-off rather than structural. In the category of fees and concessions, the bank license fees were updated based on actual fees collected up until the end of June. We have seen a slight increase, and therefore we increased the budget amount with 2 million guilders. Additionally, concession fees have been adjusted based on legal requirements, leading to a further 1 million increase from GEBE's concession. In the category Other Revenues, there is a decrease of 1 million. This includes a reduction of 11 million under miscellaneous revenues, which is offset by increases of 6 million in land lease income and 4 million in project funds. The approved 2024 budget included 13 million from the sale of Winier shares. This has been removed in the draft budget amendment. Additionally, an additional 6 million has been included from the land lease agreements, following recently signed contracts retroactive to 2021 with 2 hotels. These agreements increased the land lease rates per square meter. Of the total 6 million, 1.5 million is structural, while 4.5 million is incidental. Project funds have also been revised with an additional 4 million. These funds are tied to the country package, including 2 million for border control, Project H22, 1 million for education, 1 million for the tax authority transformation, Project C4. This brings the total project funds for 2024 to 15 million. Total expenses in the approved budget were initially projected at 573 million. In the draft amended budget, these have been adjusted to 547 million, reflecting a reduction of 26 million. These reductions are primarily in the categories personnel expenses and goods and services. The majority of the expenses categories, such as social securities and sickness insurance subsidies, depreciation, and interest, are fixed costs, making cuts in these areas nearly impossible. As a result, the only categories where reductions can realistically be made are in personnel expenses and goods and services. Over the years, we have consistently over-budgeted for personnel expenses. In 2022, we budgeted 12 million more than the actual expenses, and in 2023, this figure was 10 million guilders higher than actuals. Therefore, for this budget, we have made adjustments by partially reducing the budgeted months for some vacancies and completely removing others, which resulted in a total reduction of about 13 million. While vacancies have been decreased, there is a slight increase for OZR sickness insurance for civil servants with 1 million guilders. In the goods and service categories, adjustments were made in consultancy and external personnel expenses, training, other goods and services, and project and activity-related costs. Due to the amendments and the agreed-upon timeline, all new investments for 2024 have been removed with the exception of the prison, which is a co-finance project with the Netherlands. All other new investments have been shifted to 2025. In other words, only the investments for which we have already secured loans or financing for have been retained in the amended budget 2024. Investments for which we still need to require new loans have been removed, as we do not expect, given the current timeline, that these projects can be executed this year. An amount of 76 million guilders has been budgeted for the prison, of which 43 million will be financed through a loan, while 33 million will be provided by the Netherlands. In addition to the prison, 75.6 million guilders has been allocated to support GEBE in acquiring new generators as a backup plan. as GEBE could not, to this day, assure the government of their ability to secure financing for this on their own. Given the urgency of this issue affecting both our residents, businesses, and visitors, discussions with the Netherlands led to a possible solution that allowed this allocation in the budget. To make it clear, the Netherlands was not initially in favor of this solution, as it is a man-made problem. However, once they understood the disastrous effects it could have on St. Martin, they agreed to support this approach. Although the generators will take approximately 18 to 24 months to construct, it is essential they be purchased sooner rather than later, as the longer we delay in ordering them, the longer it will take for them to arrive on St. Martin. The government, this government, will not stand by and watch our residents, businesses, and guests suffer. Action must be taken. Therefore, solutions have been explored to address this matter at hand. The generators will be owned by the government and leased to GEBE, with the terms and structure of the lease agreement to be made final and agreed upon with GEBE. The terms to be agreed upon with GEBE regarding the leasing of the generators will be communicated to Parliament. To be very clear, if GEBE can confirm to the government today that they can finance the purchase of the generators independently and provide factual documentations to support this and not transfer the burden to the consumer, please rest assured and trust that we will not pursue this loan. It is not the government's wish to take on this financial responsibility. Rather, it is a solution to address an urgent problem affecting our residents, businesses, and visitors on St. Martin, which have gone on for far too long. Furthermore, 15 million guilders has been set aside for the construction of a new building that is designated for the Mental Health Foundation, which is co-financed project by the NRPB. An additional 6.1 million is earmarked for the financial system to be financed through the TWO. And lastly, 18 million guilders has been included for the sewage network, which will be financed through the trust fund. For all new investments planned for 2024, a loan of 133.2 million need to be acquired, which brings me to my next and final slide. At the beginning of the year, the total amount of loans, or more accurately, outstanding long-term debt, was approximately 889 million. Over the course of the year, as previously mentioned, we will need to acquire a loan of 133.2 million, while repayments due in 2024 total to 18.4 million. This will leave the country with a long-term debt of approximately 1 billion at the end of this year, with a debt to GDP ratio of approximately 32%. In conclusion, as Minister of Finance, I will remain focused on ensuring the long-term financial health of the country, addressing both immediate needs and future aspirations. Finally, collaboration with stakeholders and maintaining transparency in our fiscal management will be critical in overcoming the challenges we face. I am committed to fostering a culture of accountability and progress as we work to strengthen our country's financial position. Thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to addressing any questions you may have.